me just play the first verse.
The way you want to see for everyone's own move is through an altered lens. And I'll be you, and if we do, we can begin to understand.
Okay, so that is a lead vocal right at the center with a double a little bit off to the right. And I'm going to play it for you in solo here.
The way you want to see for everyone's own move is through an altered lens. And I'll be you, and if we do, we can begin to understand.
So basically, you can see that there's no plugins, no reverb or anything on the double. The double, Roger double's so tight that it hardly sounds like a double. It just thickens it up a little bit. And for Roger, I added a little bit of distressor, 10-to-1, so like a 1176 mode. A little bit of, I like this air plugin. This is all in the Slate plugins. API, boosting a little 10K, boosting a little 1.5, boosting 1.5 twice, boosting some more, 1.5 on the 1073 twice, and you know, basically these are the same EQs. It's that thing, you know, about if I want to wrench on it hard, I'll use a few different EQs even at the same points to get the thing where I want it to be. And we're probably going to see more of the same. So that feeds into an 1176 at more or less the Dr. Pepper setting, which is 10 and 2 o'clock. Attack all the way to the left, release all the way to the right, 4-to-1. That's sort of the starting point. And then after that, a little bit of Pultec EQ after the 1176, boosting a little 100, and boosting like quite a bit of 10K. Nothing on the double. And then that gets fed into parallel compression. And the parallel compression is usually a combination of an 1176 and a Fairchild. In this case, it's 1176 leading and a Fairchild a little bit under. So I'm going to play you the lead vocal with and without. Here's without.
The way you want to see for everyone's own move is through an altered lens.
Then with the parallel compression.
The way you want to see for everyone's own move is through an altered lens.
And that's, you know, just for some perceived volume, just to get the vocal to pop out of the mix without popping out too much or too little. Sometimes for me, compressing an individual track too much takes the life out of it, so I like to, just like any instrument, I like to just blend some heavy compression underneath it. So I also like to add a little bit of an exciter to the voice, and that's just sort of just to add a little air, a little breath. I use the Waves Vintage Roll Exciter. I think I have a de-esser in front of there because it's going to really bring out the S's. But when you listen to it,
the way you want to see
versus with it in,
the way you want to see for
just adds a little bit of presence. Just adds a little bit of presence to the voice. I think I have a little bit of, you know, obviously there's some echo on his voice. That's Echo Farm. Dynamic delay. The dynamic delay, when it's seeing input, it doesn't release the output. So that way, it only releases the tags of the words. It's a little bit cleaner version of an echo. If you're just running a regular echo, they start building up onto each other. Roger's vocal is all about the parallel compression, some exciter, a little bit of echo, and then there's usually a little bit of micro pitch shift.
the way you want to see for everyone's own move is
Which is just like a vocal doubler, Eventide, H910, basically shifting it 10 cents to the left, 10 cents to the right, just to blur the pitch a little bit. And that's standard to do. Like almost everything I do has a little bit of that in there. So that's Roger's lead vocal. Typically, like on an S, what I'll try to do is I just go through with clip gain and I'll knock them down 4, 5, 6 dB. So I'll just go through a track and any of the problem consonants, S's, F's, T's, anything that just sounds harsh to my ear, I'll just turn it down. Because when you're turning it down in clip gain, you're turning it down before any of your processing. So it's kind of the best moment to do it. So if you see a lot of these edits in here, that's what those edits are, clip gain edits. Eric's lead vocal, Eric and Tim, and these guys are kind of designed to sing together, so let's hear them.
If distress you're feeling, overhead clouds loom. From a lighthouse spaceship, I'll send a beacon out to you. If the stormy weather's loosened up your screws, from my lighthouse spaceship, I'll find a way to you.
All right, so for this guy here, Eric, his lead vocal, has a little bit of error on the slate, a little bit of. I might have copied and pasted the setting from Rogers because it looks very similar. Might have boosted a little bit of low end. Eric's got a reedier tone. He has a higher pitch tone, so you have chest voice and then you have head voice. So if somebody's more in their head voice, you might want to complement what they do by adding a little bit of chest into it. If somebody is a lot of chest, then you add a little bit of air and you add a little bit of upper mid-range to balance it out. So Eric goes into that. He goes into Pultec, boosting a little low, boosting a little high, and then into an 1176 with 8-1, 11, pretty drastic settings here. With these vocals, I gotta say that it's, I just wrench on a bunch of stuff until it starts sounding good to me, and sometimes you look back at the settings and go, wow, is that, I spent a lot of time in my career dialing things in and then looking at the knobs and going, that's too extreme of a setting. I have to figure out another way of doing it. And I kind of quit worrying about that. Like, I don't care if it looks wrong, if it sounds right, and if it blends, and if it goes from one section to another, and I'm not like feeling like I need to touch something. I'm always just trying to get the mix to the point where I feel like it's a mix I'm listening to and not a mix I'm working on. Now, it looks to me like with Eric, I'm probably using just reverb.
If distress you're feeling, overhead clouds loom.
He's got some echo, probably the same echo that Roger's on, and then he's also going into one of my favorite reverbs is the Altiverb version of Cello Studios. I worked a lot at East West, and I've learned to love those chambers, and so they get used a lot in what I do along the way, and it's just a classic sound. Tim is let's hear Tim's voice and see what he's doing. He might be doing the same thing.
If distress you're feeling, overhead clouds loom. From a lighthouse spaceship, beacon.
So Tim is wetter, and the way I have it balanced here is I have Eric in the middle with his double behind him, and then Tim's off to the side. So when you hear the guys together.
If distress you're feeling, overhead clouds loom. From a lighthouse spaceship, I'll send a beacon out to you.
Yeah, I'll DS a double. I'm not going to go through and turn down individual S's. It's not the leading sound. It's just meant to thicken up the lead vocal. So I will just go and I'll whack a de-esser on there and not worry about that too much. Roger for the verses, Eric and Tim for the choruses. Now these are just the lead vocal tracks, but they probably, these guys are not scared of harmony.
When the seas rise, you must ride it. With the anchors high and forward bows away. On the starboard side, my heart's lighted. From the Cape Race, honey, to Makapu, Hawaii.
Great, just great vocals, really well arranged, really well thought out. And so those are all, basically at this point, they're all lead singers. That's the vibe, is that there's not one guy supporting the other guy. They're all as balanced equally as possible. There's a call and answer to the lead, backing vocals and lead vocals makes up the vocal arrangement in the verse. So let's hear that. So let's hear the backing vocals all together.
See me, be me.
part of the thing I wanted to do on this is, and I'll get into the individual parts, but if you listen, let me find the best example here.
Talk through.
The voice starts out wet, and then as they get to the end of the line, it gets dry. I always love Lou Reed's "Take a Walk on the Wild Side," that the backing vocals start out wet, and then as they go through the end of the cycle, they're next thing you know really right in your face. Now they do it over the course of 4 or 8 bars or whatever, whereas this happens in a moment. But it's still, to me, it's all about movement. It's all about keeping the sound changing and being interesting. So let's hear that version one more time and just listen for it.
Talk through.
So you can hear that by the time we get to the last syllable, it's just bone dry. And you could probably get into this with Roger or the other guys as far as the way they did this, because these are all submixes. So let's just hear real quick what we have.
Talk through.
So that's Eric on the high part.
Talk through.
That sounds like Eric again.
Talk through.
Roger.
Talk through.
Roger doing another one.
Talk through.
And that's Tim. So it's 5 parts all sort of interweaving, and so when you play them all together, you get
Talk through.
And that's kind of part of the magic of this whole thing is the way these vocals are arranged. In these 5 tracks that you see, there's 5 stereo tracks, at least 10 voices, if not more. Typically, how you get these big, lush backing vocal harmonies is just layers and layers of vocals, all just with somebody just cracking the whip, and it can't be sloppy. You got to make them as tight as they can be. Like, I think the Queen vocal thing is you get 3 guys around the microphone and they all sing in unison, and then they'll do 5 parts. So you don't get 3 guys singing in harmony together. You get 3 guys singing one part and then all together, and then they sing another part all together, and then another part, and then you blend it all together. That's one of the vocal arrangements. And then we get into the waltz here. This will be good. Okay, I'm gonna play back the mix, and then we'll go and we'll listen to the individual parts.
So find a way to you. I'll come to rescue you. When the seas.
All right, that's cool. That's a classic Roger Manning vocal arrangement. I mean, all 3 of these guys, none of them are slouches in the vocal department, and they all know what to do, and they're all kind of on the same page. And so that's what's so exciting about working with these guys. So I'll play you back these backing vocals as they are.
Find a way to you. Come to rescue you.
So what we hear there is, let's break it down even more. It starts out with Tim.
Find a way to you. Come to rescue you.
And then we add in Roger on top of that.
Come to rescue you.
And then we add another Roger.
You come to rescue you.
So now we got a chord now, we got a triad. And then let's see what happens here. So that's 1 of Tim's, 2 of Roger's, and then we have Roger and Eric. So let's see what this is.
You come to rescue you.
Now we're getting into like what I call the bell tones, which is different parts of the chord, different parts of the scale come in at different times, and that's how you get that cascading, sound. And so that was one of them, and then here comes the other one.
Come to rescue you.
And then I think we get into another one.
Come to rescue you. You.
And just listen to that. And this is sort of a nod to Queen, but as it's a bell tone, as each part comes in, it comes in on different speakers. The idea is that it's sort of like, movement. It's just about creating movement.
In my lighthouse spaceship, yes, I'll find a way to you. I'll come to rescue you. When the seas rise.
And that's kind of a classic, definitely Jellyfish, Beach Boys. Okay, and so then we have one more big block, and so in that what you hear there is eventually at the very end, I think it's probably sounds to me like triple tracked. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 21 voices to make up those backing vocals. And like I said, there's other songs that are even more backing vocal intensive. So now we're gonna get into our final verse, and this is probably the last of the big blocky backing vocals. So I'll play you the mix first.
You mustn't leave the bridge, abandon ship and sink beneath the waves.
Cool. All right, let's hear it soloed up.
Hold on, hold on. Abandon ship and sink beneath the waves. Waves.
These things are bone dry. There's not like a lick of reverb on them at all. Roger and the band worked these things out, worked their balances out, and so when they came to me and I was blending these vocals into the track, I probably very likely kept all the faders where I found them, put them all on a VCA, and got the overall blend as a group mixed into the band. And then from there we tweaked a little bit, but I can see that out of these 5 stereo tracks we have, 4 of the tracks, the faders are all at minus 5.8, with the 1 being boosted. So that was maybe at some point Roger asked me, hey, I'm not hearing this part enough. And for Roger, this kind of stuff's mathematical, meaning that we'll work on it, and then he'll get home, and then he'll come in, and he'll say, okay, this part of the chord I'm not hearing well enough, and we go and we figure out which group of tracks that is and boost it. And once we get it right, it never changes. You know what I mean? Meaning it's like it's not like, I think in Roger's mind, everybody wants to be a mixer. Roger doesn't want to be a mixer, but that being said, he hears the entire thing in his head, meaning that if we were trying to find a chorus effect for something, we try every chorus effect until we hear the one that is like, yeah, that's the one I hear in my head, and then we move on. It's definitive and it's done and we've moved on. See what's going on here. Oh, okay, so this is just like a little ad lib. It sounds like it's Eric Dover saying, yeah, you got to have those moments in there. Kind of reminds me of David Lee Roth in a way. Let's hear this backing vocal here.
You mustn't leave the bridge, abandon ship and sink beneath the waves.
So just a simple harmony on the verses. That's Eric harmonizing with Roger. It looks like I put some of this Slate Monster, which is again is their version of the 1176 All Buttons In. All right, we're gonna roll down here. Let's hear what we got going on here. So it sounds like we have some callback vocals. Sounds like they're somewhat radio filtered. Let's hear that.
Copy the day signal and keep your bearings true. In my lighthouse spaceship.
Yeah, these EQs don't look familiar to me. That means that they were done before my time with this project. Again, we have the Batman cape here, whatever that is. Let's take a look at this EQ for a moment and let's hear it.
Copy the day signal and keep your bearings true.
Well, let's hear this one.
Copy the day signal, keep your bearings true.
You know, it's obviously like, you know, a lot of times on a callback vocal, you don't make that vocal as big. It just needs to be like a little ear candy thing. And so you kind of go for a radio sound where telephone frequency response is 300 to 3K. So if you ever want to get a telephone sound, you need to take a high pass filter and put it at 300, put a low pass filter at 3K. But this is not really the whole sound, because there's also like this ringing resonance that you get like on a telephone filter, and I think that's what this middle part is of this wave. I mean, here they're going from 400 to 13K, so it's not quite what I'm talking about. But what I'm saying is that if you want to go for a old-timey sound or a telephone sound, the starting point is just to really, you know, limit the bandwidth. But then once you have that carved out, you usually want to boost somewhere in the mid-range to get it to resonate and ring in a signature way. I like to use for that sort of thing that you can check out. One I don't own currently is Waves has the King's microphones, and it's not just about cutting the low end and the top end off, but it makes a ringing sound in the mid-range. And then the other one that I did use, not on this song, but I used on another song, is Isotope's Vinyl. And you can just set it for, it's supposed to emulate the sound of like a vinyl record, and it has years, eras, and so I'll just usually set it to like 1930s, and then it sounds like, you know, just very vintage old radio sound, and that's usually how I get to that sound. Here at the end, yeah, these are cool. This is worth checking out. I'm going to play a little bit of the track here so we get a little bit of context.
If distress you're feeling, overhead clouds loom. From a lighthouse spaceship, I'll send a beacon out to you. If the stormy weather's loosened up your screws, in a lighthouse spaceship, I'll find a way to you. If distress you're feeling, 3 dots splashes you.
Okay, cool. So that's Eric Dover is now the lead singer in this outro, and let's just listen to that lead vocal for a moment.
If distress you're feeling, overhead clouds loom. From a lighthouse spaceship.
And that's basically just a lead vocal with just all the usual stuff that we've talked about on there. What's interesting about this is that the multi-track, when it came to me to mix, this had a delay printed as a printed track. So I think it was probably the delay that he sang into, and so they printed that. And that's one thing to kind of keep in mind, that as you're making a record in general, is if you're compressing or adding echo, and it's something that a singer is performing with and listening to, that's not something that you want to be casual about. And what I mean by that is, if you set up a delay, and that's the delay that the singer's tracking through, you might try to best that sound, and you might try to get a better delay sound, but you want to make sure that you can get back to that sound, because it's the sound that the singer interacted with while they were performing. That might add up in a magical way that you might not be able to get back to again. Let's see, what else do we have here?
And keep your bearings true.
Okay, yes, let's hear that with the lead vocal.
Copy the day signal and keep your bearings true.
Yeah, just I melodined a harmony, like a lower harmony into the voice when he went high. I just wanted to keep something that was angular sounding harmonically, and so we just added that in, threw that against the wall. The guys seemed to like it, so it made it into the mix. And then also at the end of this vocal, I wanted him to sound like he was floating into outer space.
Find a way to you.
So I ran him through a really long reverb and printed it as a track. And it looks like there's reverb on top of reverb there. So now here we are into another vocal. Let's see what's happening here. This is the second half of the psychedelic part.
If distress you're feeling, overhead clouds loom.
We have that echo print that was still there, is still there. And let's see what this reverse thing is. Probably a reverse reverb.
If distress you're feeling, overhead clouds loom. From a lighthouse spaceship, I'll send a beacon out to you. If the stormy weather's loosened up your screws in my lighthouse spaceship, yes, I'll find a way, yes, I'll find a way to you.
Okay, well, the fun part about this is we're so deep into this psychedelic part of this song that kind of nothing sounds, you can do a bunch of things and none of it's going to be out of context. So I can see here that this, I did like a reverse reverb print. And so what I probably did, and this could be difficult for me to recreate, you take the lead vocal, you reverse it, and then you run it into a reverb unit, print that, and then reverse it again. And this is probably reverb and delay. So you get the delay happening in front of the song, which used to be, back in the day, you'd take the tape and you'd flip it over and you'd play the tape backwards and you would record onto an existing track. Probably complicated to get into the nuts and bolts of how I did that, but the one thing to remember with that is I can see that what I did was I did that and I liked the way it sounded at the beginning of the words, but it got too congested as he was singing his main parts. So if you listen to it with the lead vocal and you watch it on the faders, you can see that I ride the fader down and boost it up so I only hear, so it gets out of the way of the lead vocal. Let's hear that.
If distress you're feeling, overhead clouds loom. From a lighthouse spaceship, I'll send a beacon out to you. If the stormy weather's...
You get the idea. And then I think there's some more of these sort of eternal prints, like long ring outs. I think that the best plugins to do really long atmospheric delays, I'm either going to use little plate and you go and you use the reverb time past the red section. Let me just show you that. Sound Toys, and just knock it into this 8 to 16. That usually sounds really good. Another one I like to use is the Audio Ease Altiverb, and then you go into the gear section. Publicin, Infernal Machine, and the setting you want. Oh, where'd you go? Sound Hoarder. Any of these sound hoarders will just take a little piece of music and it'll extend it for like a 2-second piece will just ring out for 30 seconds. And then probably my third favorite, and maybe my most used because it's easy and it's right there, is the Universal Audio Lexicon 224. Go to the Kevin Killen presets, Atmosphere, run anything into that, it just rings out for about as long as you could ever want it. And that's what you hear on most of these guys. Let me just play you what this sounds like here. I'll just go and take a little piece of, right? This is a little piece of audio, and then you run it into the atmosphere. And if you print that reverb return, you can really do a lot with that. You can hear that it's feeding back on itself. It lasts for a long time. Usually I like to print it because I usually want to get rid of it at a certain time. It's just easier to manipulate it as a piece of audio rather than a send and return. And then finally, at the very end here, let's get rid of that. These guys here, very end of the, all this stuff here. All that is just his lead vocal just run into a space echo, and literally while I'm printing, I just move my, back in the day, if you wanted to get like a dubby sound, you just would run into a space echo and just move the knobs around and get the thing regenerating and feeding back. Rather than automating it or trying to recreate it with the plugins, I literally just put the track and record the effect and just wrench on it. And I did 2 tries, and then I put one to the left and one to the right, and just as the song fades out, as we're getting into this. So it's just crazy atmosphere, there's no right or wrong here. This thing, this whole song has been established, so you can really, I find I'd rather have fun and play it and have the client tell me like, that's a little bit too much, than have somebody staring at you going, I wish this guy would, try some things. That's just, I ask for forgiveness. I don't ask for permission anymore. I'm too old to wonder whether somebody would like me to try some different things. I just go for it, and if they don't like it, then they'll tell me to take it off. There's a couple other cool things here. There's some ahs. Where is it? What am I looking for here? I gotta. This track is so dense, it's hard to keep. Let's listen to this.
Don't delay, everybody come to the lighthouse spaceship. Everybody run to the lighthouse spaceship. Everyone, love is the answer, love is the question, love is the reason, love never ending. Hallelujah, hallelujah, bam, bam, come to the lighthouse spaceship. Everybody run to the lighthouse spaceship. Everyone, and forever and forever, hallelujah.
So all that craziness, it just came from a stereo track. Eric Dover did at home. That's from the mind of Eric Dover, and that's all that just came to me like that, and I turned it up and made it louder. The way records are being done now, where there's, periods where you're working traditionally in a traditional studio with a producer and an engineer, that is a great way to make a record. But the ability for an artist to go home and come up with this, listen to this. Somebody needs to be alone, you know what I mean? You need to be alone, and you need to feel the freedom of knowing that you're not being judged by a bunch of people sitting in a control room to try this crazy stuff. And to me, it's just a great way to make a record, is to have a combination of time that's very disciplined, very focused, and very professional. But for a musician to be able to go home and just discover the track on their own terms, that's what you hear at the end of the song. It's at the very end of the fade out, and it's really adds a texture and richness to the track.